This is my uncle's story. I'm sorry if it's poorly written. I've wrote it down while he was telling it to me in real time. My name is Rick Martinez, and I am a retired truck driver. This happened when I was like 30 years old. I am now 62. On the road, I have seen many strange things. I've told this story over and over. A lot of people don't believe me. But it starts off in Stockton, California, where I picked up a load of pipe. My destination was Salt Lake City, Utah. I was supposed to refuel in Barstow, California at a truck stop, but lo and behold, they were out of fuel. So I told my supervisor, hey, I got like half a tank of fuel. He told me to continue and hit the first truck stop I saw. So 100 miles into Nevada, nothing but desert. I saw nothing but a sparsely lit desert with a couple towns when I noticed my gauge set was reading empty, and I'm thinking that's not right. So I took the first exit I saw and pulled over. Told my supervisor, who was right behind me an hour away, that I was afraid to continue on and run the tanks dry. So he told me to sit still and he would be by in an hour and we could siphon some of the fuel from his tanks into mine. So I sat there, and I noticed that it was a small town with sparse lighting. As I sat there, I couldn't run the engine, so I couldn't listen to the radio, so I sat there in silence. I don't do drugs, and I didn't make this up, so listen carefully. As I'm sitting there, I notice a lot of undone construction and a trailer park to my right, completely dark, and a church off to my left about a block away with its lights on. It's about 2 a.m., and I see this jackrabbit hopping around my truck. It hops around and just stares at me and keeps hopping around. So I'm getting hungry, and I notice what looks to be a convenience store another block away from the church. So I get off the truck and decide to walk to the store. While I'm walking, I keep hearing this dog howling like it's in pain. As I'm passing the church, the 2 doors are wide open and I hear clapping like they're having services. As I pass the church, I look inside and there's no one, except for this skinny, white old man reading from the Bible and talking about hell. I don't linger too long and pass the church. Then I heard clapping again. About then, the dog starts howling again. I notice there's a bunch of empty houses on the street that goes uphill. I still am making my way towards what I think is a little mini-mart. All the time, the dog keeps howling. All the lights are on. As I go inside, this little old lady with glasses is reading a book. There's hardly anything in this store. Maybe a few cans of food, couple bags of chips, only water in the refrigerators. The whole time, the lady didn't even pick her head up from the book. So I grab a water, grab chips. I'm hungry as hell and there's nothing to eat. So I asked the old lady, is this all you have and where is everybody at? She told me everybody moved out and new construction was supposed to begin like 6 months ago. And she didn't say anything after that, so I paid her and walked out and started walking back towards the truck. The whole time the dog is still howling. So as I got closer towards the church, I looked up the street towards where I heard the howling from. I decided to go see for myself why the dog was howling. Houses on both sides of the street are boarded up and dark. I saw a house with the lights on, with about a 5-foot fence. When I looked over the fence, I was in shock. What I saw was a man in his underwear with a chain attached to his neck on all fours, howling. The hairs on my arms and neck stood up as I saw this other man burst through the back door and kick the man on all fours and was yelling at him to shut up. He ran into the doghouse. I was in shock and turned and ran back down the hill to my truck. As I passed the church, both doors still wide open, but there was no lights on anymore, and still, I can hear the clapping. Finally made it back to the truck, called my supervisor and told him what I saw. Told him hurry and get here so I can leave. My supervisor asked what exit were you talking about, and I told him, and he said, oh, I passed that. He had to turn around and come back to get me. So I'm sitting there and the rabbit is still hopping around my truck. It stopped and looked up at me as I'm sitting in my truck. I'm not saying the rabbit said it, but this is what I heard. Leave. I rolled up the window and waited for my supervisor, who showed up 5 minutes later. I told my supervisor what happened, and he just laughed at me and told me I'm gonna have to drug test you. I did not sleep on that whole trip to Utah until I got to Salt Lake City. Believe it or not, I swear this is what happened. I've recently moved to Sonora, Texas with my fiance and her family. It's been a little over a week now that we've been here, and my fiance and I haven't been able to sleep since we've been here. A few nights ago, my fiance, her brother, and myself were outside smoking and shooting the shit. I had gotten up to go take a leak, and I got a really intense feeling like I was being watched. I've never believed in any supernatural or paranormal stuff. I just enjoy the entertainment side of it. Well, I had a hard time bringing myself to look into our backyard. I should say now that where I went to go take a leak was directly across from the backyard, so I was facing it. And I quickly returned back to our porch. My fiance's brother went right after me and started to freak out. Her brother can see spirits and all that jazz and said that he saw something standing there looking at him. It was around 7 feet tall, and he said it had what seemed to be 4 children around it. Soon after he came back to the porch, my fiance and I both witnessed a dark blue aura travel towards where we were sitting on the porch. We all 3 decided to go back in for the night. The next night, I had a vivid dream about brutally killing my husky. I've never had a dream like that before, but what really threw me for a loop was the morning after my dream. I came outside to smoke a cigarette and found my husky playing with what seemed like another person. But nothing was there. And I know dogs are known to do stuff like that, so it wasn't too much of a spook. I just took note of the event. The next day, my fiance took a nap and dreamt of her execution in our front yard. I should also note that she is 7 months pregnant, and we have a 2-year-old who has seemed to have nightmares more nights than not. So we get to tonight, and my fiance saw a shadow by our window around 11:30, give or take, and it moved towards our backyard. Her brother and I went out to investigate. Where our house is, there's a smaller abandoned house next door that originally we believed was the source of whatever it is we are dealing with. But there's also a shed in our backyard that has a padlock on it from the original owners. My fiance's brother felt something about that shed since we've been here, and when we went to investigate tonight, he saw the entity looking and pointing directly at him. We both freaked out and ran back to our front porch. I'm not too sure what to do about this situation, and I made an account on here just to share what's happening in hopes I can find some direction. I'm worried about my fiance and this baby very much. We started salting the yard after the first night, but ran out right by the shed that tonight's incident happened at. If anyone has any helpful advice or insight, it would be greatly appreciated. Update, April 5th, 2020. We're fairly certain it's a demon. My fiance's pregnancy has been complicated this entire time, and she had a lot of drops in her health, specifically being worried about passing away from complications. Anyway, around 2 or 3 a.m. the other morning, I was tossing and turning a lot and it woke her up. Mind you, this is all secondhand information from her. I do not recall any of this, but I believe her. She asked what I was saying since I was also mumbling in my sleep. Again, no recollection of this. But I asked her if she was ready for her casket. She says that she freaked out and asked me again what I said, and apparently I looked her dead in the face and said it again. She just patted me on the head and told me to go back to sleep, but naturally she was up for the night after that.